Welcome to my haunted Pendle Hill.
What? Why is that door just opened?
This is exactly what we've been hearing in this house over the last few weeks. We have just left the Pendle Inn and we are making our way to my haunted Pendle Hill, undisclosed location, our 400-year-old farmhouse. And I have to say that this drive is the scariest drive known to mankind. But tonight it's going to be really fascinating. For the last few weeks we have been installing the cameras, investigating, doing a lot of work in preparation for opening night and opening weekend, so we can finally get members of the public into this place and start investigating and recording their eyewitness accounts. Now, this place, Simon, is right at the heart of the story.
Very much so, Danny. When you came up with the idea and the location, I was just completely bowled over, because you're in the very, very epicentre of the 1612 trials. And yes, it's very, very likely that the accused, and indeed the witnesses, would have actually seen the very farm and actually walked on the very land.
Oh my word.
So it's almost like, for me as a guide, a tour guide, it's almost like going to a battlefield where something actually happened.
The Pendle Witch trials of 1612 have fascinated people from across the planet. I think it's fair to say it's the most important trial involving witchcraft in Great British history. The location we're in is in the very, very epicentre of this tragic story. The only window we have in this story is a book written in 1613 called The Wonderful Discovery of Witches in Lancashire by Thomas Potts. Thomas Potts was the clerk to the courts at Lancaster, and in 1613 he wrote this book. It's the only evidence we have of the whole trial. So let's turn the clock back to March 1612 and the story of the Pendle Witches. Living not too far from where we are now was a family called the Devises, and they lived in a small cottage called Malkin Tower. Malkin Tower sounds great, doesn't it, really? But it would have been a one-roomed limestone hovel, no central heating. Living there was Elizabeth Southern, 85 years of age, her daughter Elizabeth Devise, and her three children, James, Alison, Jeanette Devise. Those three children had three different fathers. It was a very, very tough time to live in that period of time. You had no supermarkets, you just lived off the land. She had the misfortune, and it really was misfortune, of meeting a Halifax peddler called John Law. When I say peddler, John Law was basically a walking salesman. A large pack in his back full of 1612 luxuries. He would go to the villages of Downham, Roughlee, Newchurch, Blacko, Barley, Clitheroe and Cone, selling his wares. He met young Alison. Alison was probably starving and dressed in rags. "Please, sir, you can spare just a couple of pins to pin me clothing together, sir. Just a couple of pins. Get away with you, lass. You got no money. You're no use to me." According to John Law, the Halifax peddler, out of the mist, out of the heather, appeared two huge black dogs with snarling white teeth and glowing red eyes. One dog sat next to Alison. The dog turned to look at Alison, and the dog talked.
"What wouldst thou have me to do unto yonder man?"
To whom she said,
"What canst thou do at him?"
And the dog answered again,
"I can lame him."
Whereupon she answered and said to the black dog,
"Lame him."
Law felt this terrible pain on his left arm, his left leg, the left-hand side of his face, and collapsed in agony beneath the shadow of Pendle Hill. He lay writhing in agony for 5 long hours. The kind people of Cone could see him. They set off with a stretcher team to bring him back into Cone, into an old alehouse called the Greyhound Inn, which is long, long since gone. There the landlord, Jonathan Edrington, spoon-fed him, cleaned him, and as Law's voice returned, Law shouted, "I've been cursed! There's a witch in the forest, a young lass with a dog. I swear to you, I heard the dog talk. She's cursed me, she's a witch. Send letters back to my family." A series of letters were sent from Cone to Halifax to the Law household, and John Law's eldest son Abraham received the first letter. "Me father's in trouble. I better go and collect him." He arrived in the market town of Cone and walked into the old Greyhound Inn and saw his father in this twisted and contorted state. "Father, what's happened to you, man? You look terrible." "Abraham, I met a young lass with a dog. The dog talked to her, she talked to it. She's a witch. I want you, lad, to go and find her, bring her here, reverse the curse." Abraham must have been quite a brave lad. He made his way up the slopes of Pendle Hill, very near where we are now, and found the little cottage called Malkin Tower. He hammered on the door opened, he was met by a horrible, obnoxious aroma, and there at the door was James Devise, Alison's brother. "Can I help you, sir?" "I want to see Alison Devise. My father wants to see her. Where is she?" "In here, sir." Alison came to the door. "Right, lass, you're coming with me." Against her wishes, against her will, she was dragged into the old inn in the centre of Cone, and there she had eye contact with John Law, the Halifax peddler. He looked up from his sickbed. "It's you! It's you! You're the witch! You've cursed me! That dog you had, I heard it talk! You're in league with devil, aren't you? Admit it, lass!" This 14-year-old girl, Alison Devise, on bended knees, begged and begged and begged forgiveness. She had no idea. She just admitted to a state capital offence of witchcraft. And strangely enough, John Law, the Halifax peddler, is actually about to forgive her. But not his son Abraham. "Oh no, we'll have you for this. I'm gonna go and get local magistrate." The local magistrate was called Roger Nowell. He had a book written by King James I of England called Demonology and was fully aware of the king's paranoia. He also knew if he could incriminate this young girl, he was going to curry favour with the King of England personally. And this started what we now call the Pendle Witch Trials of 1612.
What is great about the location is you can see all the villages from there.
Yeah.
You can see Ruffley, you can see Newchurch, you can see Barley and Blackow, and Downham on the other side. And of course that's where all the accusations were brought forward, and indeed where all the victims were actually cursed.
Well, here we are. The journey of my haunted Pendle Hill begins right now. Over the last few weeks, the team have been hard at work installing the 14 cameras that are going to be monitoring this location 24/7. Just like My Haunted Hotel in Chester, like My Haunted Manor, USA, in America, this building will be running under the My Haunted Project format. Nothing else like it in the paranormal world.
This is the 4th time I've been here now, and it keeps getting creepier every time. Obviously the building itself is unbelievable. Set on this hill, it just adds to the creep factor, and it's got that ambience that something's going to happen all the time. I mean, Gibbsy was talking before and he saw a shadow on the hill. Unfortunately, we don't have cameras on the hill, but it's all around this area. It's something special.
The local magistrate, Roger Nowell, lived in the village of Reed, again a stone's throw from where we are now. He was fully aware of the king's paranoia. He was also fully aware if he could incriminate this young girl, he was going to curry favour with the King of England. So therefore he gave orders to the sheriffs of the forest, Hargreaves and Proctor, to go to Malkin Tower, this little cottage on the slopes of Pendle Hill, and arrest Alison Devise. She's brought to Reed Hall, Burnley, where for the second time inside 24 hours, she bursts into tears and begs forgiveness. But she gave Roger Nowell, the magistrate, a lot of information. "My grandmother, Demdike, she's a witch. So's Bessie Chattox of Newchurch, she's a witch. And so's her daughter Anne Redfern. We have familiars, sir." "Familiars? What's a familiar?" said Roger Nowell. "Sir, they are dogs. Chattox has one called Fancy, my grandmother has one called Dandy, and my brother's got one called Tib, I've got one called Ball. These dogs came to us at different times of our lives and they said, look, we can give you special powers, but in return, we need to suckle from your flesh and take your souls. The dogs, they talk to us, sir. They tell us to make clay pictures."
At her going over the next hedge, the spirit or devil called Tib appeared unto her and said,
"Revenge thee of him."
"To whom?" she said, again to the spirit.
"Revenge thee either of him or his."
And so the spirit vanished out of her sight, and she never saw him since.
"Clay picture? What's a clay picture?" said Nowell. "Sir, they are dolls made of clay. but with human hair and human teeth that we have taken from the corpses in New Church Cemetery, sir. We then crumble the clay picture over the fire, sir, and people die, sir.
And the next morning after, he took clay and made a picture of Mistress Townley, and dried it in the same night by the fire, and within a day after, he began to crumble the picture, every day some for the space of a week, and within 2 days, after all was crumbled away, Mistress Townley died.
Now Roger Nowell was not scared. He was delighted. He had a confession. He knew he was going to curry favour with the King of England personally. So therefore, for the second time, he gave orders to Hargreaves and Proctor, the two sheriffs of the Forest of Pendle, to arrest Demdike, Chattox and Redfern. They too are brought to Reed Hall, Burnley, where they see young Alison sat at the table. Now there is absolutely no love between Chattox and Demdike. In fact, a deep hatred, a burning hatred from both women towards the other. It was said that Anne Whittle, commonly known as Bessie Chattox, did in fact take the life of Demdike's husband, John Devise. She'd offered to give the family protection, and they were very scared of her. And for the protection, she was offered a bag of meal and clothing. When this agreement stopped, John Devise died suddenly, and Demdike was convinced that Chattox had murdered her husband. So no love between these two women whatsoever. As they sat round the table at Reed Hall in front of the local magistrate, Nowell started to interrogate all of these suspects. That's when Chattox decided to blame Demdike for everything. And that's when Demdike decided to blame Chattox for everything, for the dogs, the cursings, and indeed the strange goings on in the Forest of Pendle. Nowell was absolutely delighted. The four of them unwittingly actually admitted to witchcraft. They admitted to maiming people, turning milk blue, and also cursing various sections of the Forest of Pendle.
12 years ago, Anne Chattox at a burial at the new church in Pendle did take 3 scalps of people, which had been buried and then cast out of a grave, as Chattox told him, and took 8 teeth out of the scalps, whereof she kept 4 to herself and gave the other 4 to Demdike, his grandmother, which 4 teeth now showed to him are the 4 teeth that Chattox gave to his grandmother, which teeth have ever since been kept until now, found by Henry Hargreaves and him at the west end of his grandmother's house.
The 4 of them made the long journey from the Forest of Pendle over what we call the Trough of Bowland to the city of Lancaster, where they are thrown into what's called the Well Tower, which is still there to this very day. It is a very deep underground dungeon where not even a chink of light will get to you. These 4 women are chained to the floor in total darkness, in very cramped conditions, and there they are going to wait until August of that year.
This is Pendle Hill, what some would consider, and I would have to agree with this, the most haunted location in the country. You only have to visit the area to understand the atmosphere, to understand the creep factor that it gives you. Every hamlet and village that surrounds Pendle Hill itself has some part to play in those witch trials back in 1612. And right here in this 400-year-old farmhouse, this may have been one of the meeting points for those accused. It may have been home to one of the accused families or one of the victims that passed away or suffered some kind of illness that back in those days they would have considered witchcraft. Of course, when we talk about the Pendle witches and when we talk about those people that were accused, we have to put it down to superstition. You know, King James I, very superstitious, very paranoid of witchcraft. These were very likely innocent people.
It is a dream come true, having somewhere that we have as a base that we can investigate and learn more about the surrounding areas, learn more about this particular property. It's going to be phenomenal.
The age of the building has been a real issue for this. The owners of the property did not want us drilling through walls, drilling through floors. Our workload was treble what it could have been. Would have been really easy to run 2 cables into each room, drop one through the floor from upstairs to downstairs, bish bosh bash, done. However, we weren't allowed to do that, so we've had to run each individual cable singularly to each room of the property. So we have still got a couple of cameras to fit, but the basic rundown here, we've got the control room, which is the top left at the back of the building. This is going to be room 4, which is the front of the building at the left, which is next door to the control room. This is room 3, which is just next door to this on the other side of that wall. This then is the corridor, so down here is the control room where we're currently sat. This is like the master bedroom, which is going to be room 2. This is the biggest bedroom upstairs. That's in the middle of the hallway. This here, I love this shot. This is the hallway along the top floor, which is toward the back of the building, and when this hallway is dark, it is a really creepy area.
The family who lived in this very building for 10 years, they were experiencing paranormal activity here. Now, they don't want to appear on camera, and it's understandably so, but they have allowed us to run this project in this house, which has sat empty now for the last 4 to 5 years. They all believe they witnessed something here, and especially their son, the accounts. We have to be very careful on what remains private and confidential, but we also have to tell everybody who watches this that this isn't just a random house. This is a 400-year-old property, and the family here upped and left.
So Demdike, Chattox, Alison Device and Anne Redfern are interned in the Well Tower, Lancaster City Castle. In the meantime, here on the slopes of Pendle Hill, Elizabeth Device is very worried about her mother, Demdike, and she organises what has gone down in history as the Good Friday meeting. Here on the slopes of Pendle Hill, within the very site of this farmhouse, they all gathered at Malkin Tower. Now, apparently the whole idea of this meeting was to get a potion together to blow the gates of Lancaster City Castle open and rescue Demdike, Chattox, Redfern and Alison Device. James Device was there that night. He slaughtered the sheep from the side of Pendle Hill, and they dined on fresh roasted mutton. They also got a large cooking vessel called a cauldron and lit a fire beneath the cauldron. The black syrupy liquid inside began to bubble and steam, and huge volumes of steam went into the air. The whole idea of this was to get a potion together to literally rescue their loved ones. But nothing happened. What did happen is word reached the ears of Roger Nowell, the local magistrate, of this meeting on the Forest of Pendle at Malkin Tower. He was furious. "I want these people arrested immediately." When word filtered into the Forest of Pendle, the following people thought, there's no way we're going to hang around. Christopher Howgate, his wife Barbara and Isabel Sygroves, they left the Forest of Pendle and made their way into the West Riding of Yorkshire. In doing so, they saved their lives. The ones that were successfully arrested from this event were Jeanette Preston of Gisborne, West Yorkshire, a village again within shouting distance of where we are now. Jeanette Device, she was also arrested along with her brother James and her mother Elizabeth, along with Catherine Hewitt and Alice Gray of the market town of Cone, John and Jane Bulcock, and by far the most famous of all the so-called Pendle witches, Alice Nutter of Roughly, again a village we can see from the very doorway of this very, very building. Roger Nowell is absolutely delighted. He knows he's going to curry favour with the King of England personally, and he writes the King. The King wrote back, "Mr. Nowell, sir, I'd like to congratulate you on the successful arrest of these evil, wicked women. I'm going to send 2 circuit judges, James Altham, Edmund Bromley, and a young lad called Thomas Potts. He'll record everything that's said. If you could meet those 3 at Lancaster with 2 of your other magistrates, you will form the prosecution."
Here, this worthy Justice Mr. Nowell, out of these particular examinations, or rather accusations, finding matter to proceed, and having now before him old Demdike, old Chattox, Alison Device, and Redfern, both old and young, About the 2nd of April last past, committed and sent them away to the castle at Lancaster, there to remain until the coming of the King's Majesty's justices of assize.
They were all sent to Lancaster with the exception of Jeanette Preston. She came from the West Riding of Yorkshire. She was therefore sent to the city of York. When she arrived there, her husband went with her. Villagers went with her to beg for her release. The judges in York looked a bit sheepish when they told her husband, "I'm sorry, the king has signed her death warrant."
And Preston's wife was the last, and when she got on horseback, they all presently vanished out of his sight. And before their said parting away, they all appointed to meet at Preston's wife's house that day 12 months, at which time Preston's wife promised to make them a great feast. And if they had occasion to meet in the meantime, then should warning be given that they all should meet upon Romley's Moor.
The other Jeanette, now she is the youngest of the Device children, whilst her grandmother Demdike, her mother Elizabeth, her brother James and sister Alison have been sent to the Well Tower in Lancaster. She's been sent to live with the local magistrate. For the first time in her life she has 3 meals a day, nice clothes to wear, and to use a modern term, she's being slowly groomed by Roger Nowell. The trials began on the 17th, 18th and 19th of August 1612 in the city of Lancaster. Demdike, Elizabeth Southern, that was her real name, she died before the trials began, but her own granddaughter, the little girl Jeanette Device, is brought into the court by Roger Nowell wearing a lovely white dress, a white bonnet, and he picks her up and puts her on top of the desk. And there she starts to tell the jury about these 4 dogs, Tib, Ball, Fancy, Dandy, belonging to the group that would suckle from their flesh, take their souls, but also tell them to fashion these clay pictures. Her mother Elizabeth is in court and she shouts, "Stop it, Jeanette! Stop it, Jeanette! You don't know what you're saying!"
Pray thee, child, why dost thou speak these things?
"Have my mother removed from the court, sir. She's upsetting me." And her mother was taken downstairs. The first person to be put on trial was indeed Demdike, Elizabeth Southern, but she has died in the Well Tower, so her own granddaughter is going to give evidence against her. She's accused of the murder of Henry Mitten of Roughly. Her own granddaughter confirms that she had a dog that gave her special powers, and she is found guilty in her absence. The first person brought up from the cells was the 85-year-old Anne Whittle, commonly known as Bessie Chattox. Not a pleasant sight to look at. Through no fault of her own, she had to lie in her own waste in the Well Tower. Her clothes were heavily stained and the aroma in the court was not pleasant. She's very ill. She's over 85 and she's been on a starvation diet since April of that year. She's so weak she can hardly talk. They say that she got the name Chattox because her teeth shattered, probably with fear. The little girl still on the table confirms that she was first of all at the Good Friday meeting at Malkin Tower, and she had this dog called Fancy that gave her special powers. She's so ill she could hardly talk, but she's accused of the murder of John Device, Hugh and Anne Moore, and Anne and Robert Nutter by witchcraft. These people died over a period of 12 years, but the little girl on the table confirmed that she was indeed guilty and was certainly at the Good Friday meeting. But this is where the story really does take a very sinister twist. In court that day were 3 people who many historians believe should not have been there. And this is where Steven Spielberg really should get involved, because you have everything you'd associate with a Hollywood thriller. John and Jane Bulcott were farmers, and they farmed again within earshot of this very building. In fact, they may have even farmed outside the front of this building. Hard-working farmers. Now, the land was owned by a lady called Alice Nutter. She lived in a beautiful hall called the Old Hall in Roughly, which is still there to this very day. It's a Grade 1 listed building. Now, she'd lost her husband, and she took over the business, which was indeed extracting rents off the farmers that lived on her land, including the people that would have actually lived here. She'd have taken rents off them. John and Jane went to see her. Mistress Nutter, someone has been stealing our cattle, stealing our sheep, and they've been pushing our fencing back, and indeed we're losing land. Don't worry, she said, I will go and see Roger Nowell, the local magistrate for the Forest of Pendle, and get this land dispute sorted. She made her way to Reed Hall, Burnley, but Roger Nowell refused to see her. Why? Because she was a woman, and in 1612 women had no rights whatsoever. And Alice thought, well, my husband's dead, I can take over the business. But she didn't realise that in that period of time, women weren't really respected as businesswomen. So Nowell refused to see her. She then made a huge decision, and that was to go to Lancaster City Castle herself to complain about land disputes. She walked into the city castle and heard the words, "It's a woman! A woman! Get her out!" She grabbed hold of the furniture, would not let go of her grip. And the judges, well, let her have her say. In one day, she won her land disputes fairly and squarely. But in doing so, she made an enemy of Roger Nowell. Burning rage. I need to get revenge on this woman. And also John and Jane Bulcock. How? He had the trump card up his sleeve. The little girl still standing on the table, Jeanette Device. He said in front of the jury, Jeanette, these people here, John and Jane Bulcock, Alice Nutter, were they at your home, Malkintown, on Good Friday? They were, sir. A look of shock and horror came across John and Jane's face, Alice's face, as they realised they were being found guilty on the evidence of a little girl. They made pleas of not guilty. In the case of John and Jane, they are found guilty of turning a young girl called Jean Mead of Harrogate completely insane. They said, we don't know her. We haven't even been to Harrogate. But the little girl pointed them out as being at the Good Friday meeting. In the case of Alice, who has to be the whole star of this tragic event, she is found guilty of aiding Alison Device and Demdike in the murder of Henry Mitten of Ruffley because he wouldn't give her a penny. In court she said, "Sir, I don't need to beg, I'm a woman of wealth." And of course she was. But the jury believed a little girl of that age could not be manipulated. James Altham was a bit concerned because she realised that Alice could read and write, which was quite unique, really. And she said, let's have another identity parade. They mixed prisoners from down in the cells together with Alice Nutter and John and Jane, but little Jeanette pointed them out again and again and again. The judge then tried a trick. Where was Jane Doe sitting? Jeanette looked up and looked him in the eye. "I'm sorry, sir, I know of no woman of that name." And that sealed their fate.
It only remains I pronounce the judgment of the court against you by the king's authority, which is, you shall all go from hence to the castle, from whence you came. From thence you shall be carried to the place of execution for this county, where your body shall be hanged until you are dead, and God have mercy upon your souls.
The 20th of August 1612, in front of huge crowds in the city of Lancaster, the Pendle witches were executed. Watching that day was the little girl Jeanette Device, holding the hand of the local magistrate Roger Nowell. She watched her whole family perish as the head jailer Thomas Cavell kicked the trestles out from underneath them. These poor people did not hang, they strangled to death. She watched their entire family die that day. And as soon as they all stopped twitching, Nowell said, "Goodbye." "But surely, sir, I'm going back to that lovely warm house of yours, sir. Goodbye." He'd used her. She made the long journey back here to the Forest of Pendle, to a cold and empty cottage, knowing full well her evidence had claimed the lives of her entire family. We know she survived because 20 years later, she's rearrested on a charge of witchcraft. Of course, with her family reputation, it's taken very, very seriously. And a little boy called Edmund Robinson said he'd seen her commit acts of witchcraft in the forest very near where we are now. And of course, with the family reputation, it's taken seriously. She's sent to Lancaster. The poor girl is stripped naked. They look for marks on her body. Sent down to London, the same thing happened again. Back up north, back down south. And after 2.5 years of travelling up and down the country, this young boy Robinson said, "Actually, I made it all up. I didn't see her do anything." So witchcraft, or the superstition surrounding it, absolutely destroyed that young girl's life and, of course, her entire family. But what we do find amazing here on Pendle Hill is when the snows come to Pendle Hill, the last piece of snow to melt is in the perfect shape of a white witch. If you don't believe me, just look it up.
Our guests, obviously members of the public, are transported up to this location. They will have to be driven by us in these vehicles. It's so atmospheric, it's so unique. I just said to myself, if I was a guest coming to this type of location, there's nothing else like it out there. Nothing else in the world like this. You are going to a genuinely active 400-year-old farmhouse right on the very side of Pendle Hill. This journey will be incredible, but it's a long process. Don't expect things to just happen straight away. That's not how the paranormal works here. Unlike my haunted hotel, where we have decades and decades of eyewitness accounts, we don't have that here. It's going to take a lot of time to understand how the building behaves naturally. We are in such a remote area that wildlife will have a part to play in this, but there is that aspect that paranormal activity does exist here, and it is now our job to find out.
For over 4 months, we had been working non-stop to open this brand new location as we become the first paranormal team to ever open a key base at Pendle Hill. As opening week approaches, we are in the midst of our investigation process, recording data and monitoring surveillance. But just 1 week earlier, something astonishing happened.
We are here in the brand new My Haunted Pendle Hill control room, and what we are doing is setting up a live EVP station that we can come back and monitor. This will roll over the next few days. We've got microphones rigged up in pretty much every room, all the corridors and downstairs as well. And the purpose here is to just leave them running. Let the cameras and our audio system do the work for us. This is what is called the monitoring stage. It's where we are not actively investigating, but we are using 24/7 surveillance with 24/7 audio surveillance as well to see how the building behaves naturally, but also if we can pick up on anything that we can't quite explain at this point. Yesterday, in the middle of the afternoon, 2 minutes past 2 to be precise, we captured the sound of what very much sounds like movement on the upstairs. Coming in today, we've had a chance to obviously review all the footage. We can confirm, obviously, we have the keys to this building, no one comes in here. It's there. It's clear as day on our corridor microphone, and the camera very faintly picks it up. Yeah.
Something's just moved next to me. Something's just moved in the hallway.
Serious?
Footsteps. You can see the plastic on the floor, and I heard footsteps along it. Everyone's downstairs. You can see them on the cameras.
It's mind-blowing. It really is mind-blowing when you start to see, when you do this full time and you start to open these locations, you start to see things happening. Now, people will watch and they'll have high expectations. We don't. We're like, this is going to take months and months and months before things start happening. Things are happening straight away in this building, and it's as real as you can possibly get.
So we're here in the master bedroom. And it's pitch black. It's so dark in here. The only thing lighting up at the moment is the aeroflux. Obviously measured air pressure in here. It's got a weird feeling, hasn't it?
I was just going to ask you how you were feeling, Harry. Oh, shit. Aeroflux just went off.
Yeah, right.
You happy with that?
That's spot on.
What?
Why is that door just opened? Is there a camera in this room? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
You happy with that?
That's spot on.
What?
Yeah, right.
You happy with that?
That's spot on.
What?
I'm not quite sure what it did. It sounded like that kind of sound.
Yeah.
I don't know if it has just latched.
Just see now if it opens by itself.
If you can hear us, can you open this door?
Just try, Dan, stepping close to the bottom of the door, see if that actually causes it.
See, it feels relatively solid, doesn't it?
So we just heard potentially something on the corridor. Again, we're going to emphasise that all these new sounds are new to us. It's going to take some getting used to. Again, I just heard an owl outside, which is quite strange.
We've had all sorts, haven't we? Pheasants, deer, sheep.
Now I know you've been saying that throughout this whole process you've been taking, you know, the atmospheric readouts. We've been testing for every kind of factor here.
Yeah.
And there's nothing out of the ordinary.
It's been very, very normal so far. Milligauss levels, EF levels, RF levels, even infrasound and such like are all pretty standard, what you would expect.
The good thing here as well is, of course, like, we are in the middle of nowhere. We shouldn't get any kind of outside interference on any sort of equipment. Obviously, we are very skeptical about equipment in general, but we use stuff that we truly believe can aid investigations.
Yeah.
This building has been empty for quite a while now. Are you happy that we're here?
For over 3 hours, the house is silent, but something is about to happen, which will prove to be a major factor in our opening weekend.
Up to now, it's been a quiet night.
Yeah.
I didn't really get anything before, maybe a few footsteps, but I'm not 100% sure. Heard an owl outside, which is new to me.
It's it does make you realise how extremely remote this building is, because you go out and you just wander around and it feels like you're being watched from everywhere.
Yeah. And we've got the scary drive home shortly. Yeah. You're alright. You got your big beast. I'm in a van.
You'll have to drive behind me just in case you have to, like,
just smash into you.
Yeah.
We can't stop.
But move.
What?
But move your arm again.
I never moved it. I mean, I went away from the fire.
Something in this mirror just caught my eye. But I think I can only see that unit in that mirror. I don't think I can actually see you.
No, not at that angle. I can't see you. So.
No. Weird.
This is the one difference, like with the hotel, you've been there years, so you know.
All the natural noises.
Yeah.
Did you used to live in this house?
Oh,
was there not?
Hear that?
Yeah, over there.
That was down there. It was like on the floor. I was almost looking right at it.
Were you answering my question? Did you used to live here?
Maybe you still do live here.
Are we in your space?
That was the same spot.
Yeah.
So the first bit was actually the plastic. For reference to the camera, there's plastic coating on the flooring from where it's been decorated. So we heard movement on that.
Yeah.
The second time sounded like the floorboard.
Yeah.
It did.
Brett is pointing at the door as if he can hear something coming down. That's the back staircase which leads down past this wall here, and he's pointing as if he's hearing something coming from there.
Can you walk towards us, please?
Oh, what was that? Two knocks.
Ding, ding.
It's a here. Can you walk towards us, please?
Oh, what was that? Two knocks.
Ding, ding.
It's a here.
That was
It's
one.
right there. I don't know if it's knocking or floorboards creaking.
They don't
But
creak.
there was the one there.
They don't creak. You go and walk on the floorboards, they don't creak.
No, it's quite
I haven't
solid.
noticed, no. And again, it's getting closer.
It is.
It sounded like it was on the table there at the end of the couches.
It's shuffling across. We're all just going to end up this end of the room.
I'm going to get out of the building.
Don't know.
Probably more than I expected, to be fair.
I don't know. We need to.
It's a weird place.
We need to review a lot.
Everything happened when I wasn't in the room, so I'm not happy.
Pendle, pendle that standest alone. Twixt Burnley and Clitheroe, Whalley and Co, where horror and ripples fair waters do meet, with barley and Downham content to die feet.
It is opening night. We are waiting for the time to come to go and get the guests from the Pendle Inn. We're still all hands on deck. Last few bits that we're getting sorted out.
Hands on deck, you sit there with a cup of tea?
So the boys are really busy.
It is opening night, finally. And I am so tired already, but excited at the same time. It's gone dark. The owls are twitching. Yeah, but super excited. Got the new car today. Piece of piss coming up the hill today. Well better than Danny's. Can I say piece of piss? Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, well better than Danny's car. Well better off-road. Well better driver. Look forward to seeing you all.
It is Thursday night at my haunted Pendle Hill, and we are about to transport guests from the nearby Pendle Inn to our 400-year-old farmhouse.
The story begins in the rugged landscape of Lancashire, where whispers of sorcery and dark dealings spread through the rural communities. In the early 17th century, paranoia about witches was at an all-time high.
Welcome to my haunted Pendle Hill. Yes.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here to mark this incredible occasion. On a personal level for the team and I, this is a real dream come true. There's one thing I said to the guys when everybody came on board is that Pendle Hill is the absolute dream location and we have to get it to work. So big thank you to these guys for actually making it work. Saz has absolutely pulled this one out of the You are now part of this journey, guys. And as the first guest to enter the property, you are now being filmed. Cameras behind you, wave. Just like we do at the hotel. Everything is now being recorded, and we hope over the next 2 to 3 years to add to the incredible portfolio that is the My Haunted project. Our first ever guests at My Haunted Pendle Hill begin their investigation, and we would have no idea what this opening night would produce. Okay guys, the guests have now begun their night here at My Haunted Pendle Hill. This is opening night. We are in our very messy control room because we're still not fully set up in here. We've got the cameras ready to roll. Here with Gibbsy, Stel, Caravici, Saz. The drive up here with the guests was absolutely epic. It just completely sells the place immediately, and we briefed them. We told them to stay rational. This is it. We are ready to go.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Right, we've just heard sounds like a voice out in the room just next to us. Use your arm pointer.
But that might come to you.
Right.
Okay, we have just heard from the library. The group in there have heard what they said was a voice coming from the Pendle room. Now, we have checked this back and we can hear something, but we won't know until we've managed to enhance the sound more. The speakers on our system, early days at the moment, they're not the best. So we're going to have to get this enhanced in the edit and see. Upon review of this, we do not believe anything paranormal occurred, and it was highly likely one of the male guests in the barley room calling out. The next 2 hours drag, then all of a sudden, something happens.
So Danny and Dan have both gone to film with the guests. Danny's gone to room 3 and Dan's gone to room 4.
There's one behind me. Can anyone hear it? I keep hearing little noises. Oh, I heard that. There's nothing there. Behind you, that was. Oh! There was nothing. I didn't see nothing, but I was watching it. I could hear it.
Whoa, what's just gone on?
Jodie. What's happened?
What's happened there?
I heard some tapping behind me, like literally 2 taps. So I asked for it again. 2 more taps, and I asked for it again, and then a little while later 2 more taps, coming from the wall between like the kitchen area and the foyer.
Unfortunately, our cameras did not capture this audio, but that was all about to change. As the building begins to stir, it begins with Harry having to leave the location as he suddenly becomes unwell.
What?
What was that? Oh, I was checking your bed and I thought it was down.
No.
Oh, must have been.
Time code that.
Where was it coming from? Cereal over there.
End of the kitchen. Yeah.
What we had just captured was absolutely spine-chilling, as the 2 guests in the barley room hear the clear sound of a baby. And what is even more mind-blowing is that since we have had access to this house, the team have heard this on multiple occasions, but have not been able to capture it until now.
The biggest thing that we have witnessed so far is the sound of a child crying on the upper levels. Listen to this. This is exactly what we've been hearing in this house over the last few
Got
weeks.
it now.
That is it.
That is exactly what we have.
Both of us go.
It's like a child going. Listen. And you said you heard it coming from in here.
Yeah, like the doorway.
You guys heard that, yeah? Anyone wants to film this, you're more than welcome.
I was just saying, Danny, how me and you were filming B-roll in there, and we both heard a sound like that.
That's like a baby, like a child, half asleep.
That is mental.
Like murmuring.
Now our job is to recognise patterns and find historical documentation which may link to the paranormal activity. Listen to this account from Thomas Potts' book, which refers to the sound of babies crying.
James went on to say that he had met a brown dog near his grandmother's house, and that over the next few days, frightening things started to happen, including the sound of many children crying pitifully and the sound of a large amount of cats screaming.
Oh my god, we haven't even got anything running.
Whoa! What the fuck was that?
What the fuck?
What the hell was that?
No idea.
What was that?
Oh my god!
Genuinely.
We need to shut our back right now.
Yeah.
Oh my god, we haven't even got anything running.
Whoa! What the fuck was that?
What the fuck?
What the hell was that?
I know we'll definitely have the audio. Harry has gone home. He is extremely unwell and we don't know why. It's very unlike him. We're not obviously claiming it's paranormal at all, but he has just suddenly turned. Downstairs, we've done white noise sessions. We even set up an experiment, which is the first time it's ever been done, using an EVP frequency mic to try and listen out for any frequency changes in the atmosphere. Because we had a hit at the hotel, at my haunted hotel, doing this. But it's all quiet. But what we did hear downstairs is an extremely loud noise coming from the kitchen.
We did. Sorry, something else has just moved. I don't get what on earth's going on. Something else has just moved.
Speechless, absolutely speechless. You come into this and you expect a long, patient wait, weeks, months, without anything happening. This just goes to show that everything that we do at the project
has a pattern behind it. It happened at the hotel with refurbishments. When we change the fabric of a building, it kicks off. It happened at the manor over in America, and it is happening here. But tonight, telling the guests a story that we as a team have heard 3-4 occasions now, the sound of children crying in this building. It's just a story. It happened in front of 2 guests and we got it on camera. That is the absolute beauty of My Haunted Project. I said to the guests before they left, it may seem like a quiet night because of long periods of quietness, but 5 or 6 highlight moments have happened tonight that will get mashed into what you guys are watching now. Absolutely insane. This journey has well and truly begun.
So I think seeing what tonight has produced, it's kind of really given me not only the confidence that what we thought we experienced prior to opening tonight has some validation to it, but also it gives me a whole new level of we need to figure out what exactly is going on here. And I think the best way to do that is we're all going home now, and I'm going to leave voice recorders in the 2 hotspots tonight. So these should record for in and around about 20 hours.
Dan leaves his microphones recording, and we now fast forward to Saturday after Friday's investigation produced no key moments. Just as we are briefing Saturday's guests, this happens.
With all the work that needs to be done to it.
What's going on, guys? It is Saturday night here at My Haunted Pendle Hill, and the guests have just begun their investigation. We just don't know what to expect tonight. Last night, quiet. Thursday night, insane. Tonight, we don't know, but something happened right at the beginning in the breathing building. Chatix.
50p.
We have a Chatix box. Chatix's box. Now, after that happens, you tried to replicate it in front of the guests and couldn't.
It just was shut. It was shut.
Now, I know this is an old building, and the skeptic within me would say doors will have bad latches and they will come, but there is a pattern emerging early on of doors opening in this building.
Yeah, right.
You happy with that?
That's spot on. Whoa.
Dan Caravan has left his voice recorders here overnight, Thursday night into Friday, and captured what sounds like door latches.
Yeah, he said it's latchy.
After an interesting start and some compelling audio from the early hours of Friday morning, we had no idea what to expect from Saturday's investigation. Right, guys, we are about 8:30 now. The guests have been investigating for about half an hour. Very, very quiet, but all of a sudden, in that foyer area, like entrance hall, this seems to be the hotspot. They've just had 2 taps on demand. Now, it's only happened twice, but it was definitely there.
It was. And they're pointing to where the door opened.
Yes, they are. The lady Debbie, we asked her where it was coming from, and she pointed up. Now, where she's pointing to is actually behind this wall here, which is room 4, next to our control room. We listened in on the camera, couldn't hear any of it.
There was nothing going on in there, was there?
Noise. If you can take it for us again, please. If there's children, do you want to come and play with us? If that was you, thank you. Did you ask for us again? Are you joking? I'll be shivered. Thank you so much.
As this set of guests head into the Pendle room half an hour later, they again experience something bizarre.
Let's play some more. What is that? What the hell is that? Did you hear that?
They have just heard movement in the kitchen, and at the same time, the guests in the barley room hear it also, and we are able to capture it on camera.
Multiple weird things are happening here at my haunted Pendle Hill, and we cannot debunk them. First off, a replication of knocking happened down in the kind of foyer reception area. Now, we said to the other group earlier tonight, as an experiment, we're not going to tell any of the other guests that that knocking occurred, and if it happens again...
Danny?
Yep, come in.
Hi Danny, Charlie felt a chair moving backwards there, just 30 seconds ago.
Okay, we'll watch that back and we'll come back to you.
Oh my god, it is all going on here. We said we weren't going to tell the other guests about the knocking. The same thing has happened with another pair of guests.
Dan, there's a big tap then in the corner of the room where near the doorway into the other room.
Room 2's gone nuts because they heard someone walk outside the door and we've got it on camera.
And it sounds like the latch is tried.
Yeah.
What is it? There's something about the doors in this building.
Thank you so much, thank you. I was like, footsteps. I was just staring there.
Hi Danny.
I'm really scared. Look, my TV don't touch my TV don't touch the floor. It moved a slight inch backwards. Thank you so much for that. Can you maybe do that again?
Hi Danny, Charlie felt a chair moving backwards there, just 30 seconds ago.
My chair just moved. No, my chair just moved.
Did you see a chair?
I don't see it, no.
Look, my TV don't touch
This could be a case now of mass hysteria, because this is a classic example of how psychological this kind of thing can be, and especially when you're freaking out. They have had genuine activity happen outside their room. We heard it, we've got it on camera, but now they are freaking out because they're scared. They're genuinely scared.
The lady in the room, she particularly sounds quite panicked, doesn't she?
So in the first room, we were sitting, it was quiet, and we all heard a tapping noise. We radioed into the control room, and the guys were able to say they heard it. We heard it on 2 occasions, and before we left the room, Danny called us down and asked us to keep quiet and not to mention to anyone else in case we contaminated anybody else's perceptions.
Yeah, it was yeah. So we heard walking outside the room, and we weren't sure if it was footsteps or whether it was the door kicking open. But it was very loud and it seemed to go on for a very long time.
It was only very briefly. It probably moved less than half an inch, but I felt it. I think you just asked somebody to touch one of us, and then my chair very slightly moved backwards.
I'm the skeptic in the couple. You know, I need to be convinced. I've been in a number of investigations before when folk have heard things and I've not. This has been insane this evening. In 3 of the 4 rooms I've heard things. What they are I've no idea, but really clear evidence, things that you guys have backed up.
We decide to target the Barley Room, where strange unexplained tapping had been captured, and where 2 nights earlier, guests witnessed the sound of a baby crying. And what happens next disturbed all of us. Earlier on, 2 of our guests captured this audio.
Are there any children here? What's that noise?
Is that your stomach?
No. That was weird. What was that noise? Yeah. Can you make that noise again?
That was your stomach.
It was on my stomach, I promise.
Did witchcraft take place here, in this area? This is Rob, and it is his audio that has captured this extremely disturbing sound. He placed his own microphone here, where 2 days earlier, the sound of a baby crying was heard.
We have no idea that this has happened, and we're only sent the recording days after. We cannot explain it. Did witchcraft take place here, in this area? My Haunted Pendle Hill had begun its long journey under My Haunted Project, and what we have documented in the very early stages may be one of the clearest examples of the famous Pendle Hill paranormal activity. We will see you soon.